10,000 years, 30,000 years, 40, till you get like 900,000 years later, you got a shivering last dinosaur sitting there in the cold. And that's the end. That's the story we were told in school.
Is a long, slow, wintry collapse.
Yeah.
No. Why would we tell these good people that tired old story from Miss Magruder's?
I made her Magruder tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let us offer up a completely different
It's Scottish
take.
tonight.
Scottish, all right. We'll go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's actually flip the understanding completely.
I think we should.
Based on new science. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. Keith, pull up that ballistics video that we showed earlier with the red sand. Can you sort of pull that up and blow it up to the 3 screens, and then, yeah, rewind it back. Thank you. Oh, no, back just a bit more. Okay, so this is a 6,000 frame a second video that you're seeing here. This is from Pete's lab. At this point on the screen, all you're seeing is a pit of red sand. Now, what you see in the first few frames is you see the laser hitting right there. Red sand flying in the air, super slow-mo. And then the next frame forward, right there, you see some fire. You see a little bulb of fire erupt near the impact site. Right where the laser hits the sand, there's this little clump of flame, and we freeze on that spot. Now, scientists can now measure the temperatures in that spot right there. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
And just to state the obvious, we know from those measurements that that spot right there would have gotten very, 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 very hot.
Way beyond the temperature of the sun. I mean, we're talking temperatures maybe 20,000 degrees. Whoa. The sun's temperature's about 5,000 degrees.
And if we're talking temperatures 4 times hotter than the sun, well, anything that's that hot is going to instantly turn to
Gas.
A very, very high temperature, high pressure gas.
It's actually rock vapor, rock steam.
So imagine, this thing comes barreling in, this asteroid. It doesn't just bounce off the Earth, it plows into the Earth. It goes into the surface. 2 miles in, 5 miles in, 7 miles in, 10 miles in, 20 miles into the Earth it goes. All the rock that's it's plowing into is turning into a liquid and then into a gas. And now, watch what happens next. This is a basic physics experiment we're going to show you. On the screen you see a very lovely video, actually, of a hand dropping a metal ball into some sand. This is just a dude dropping a ball in some sand. Watch this right here. Ball goes in, and like a millisecond after it makes impact, disappears into the sand, a little spear of sand goes shooting back in the opposite direction. Sort of a bounce back effect.
Does this always happen, this, whatever this is?
It's like Newton's law of something.
Yeah.
Newton's law of sand,
Okay.
let's say. No, but what you see is you see this fine plume of sand go shooting back in the opposite direction as this sort of rebound, right? Now imagine that that ball is an asteroid, and that sand over there, that's the planet Earth. So Keith, play that one more time. And play the video again, but this time, as the ball drops, it gradually morphs into an asteroid. Thank you for those sounds. So you would get the same effect. You would get the... The simple point is...
It's just something we do.
You wonder where we get all of our sound design? It's out of that man's mouth. That's where. So you would get that same bounce back effect of a fine plume shooting back in the opposite direction. But we know, from what we just heard, Doug describe that it would not be sand in this case. It would be rock gas.
This plume of hot gas expands upward and pushes right on through the atmosphere, up into space.
Some fraction hit the moon.
Really?
Some fraction of that hit Mars.
Okay, so now you got this sneeze of rock vapor. It's out in space. Basic physics says that as it travels out farther away from the Earth, what's going to happen is it's going to start to cool down a bit. And when it cools...
It recondenses into little droplets that basically form glass very quickly. Little droplets of glass about the size of sand.
Now, if you look at one of these little droplets of glass under a microscope, this is what it looks like right there. On the screen, you see what looks kind of like a translucent snowball. That is actually a magnified image of one of these bits of glass that fell from space that day. Most of them didn't land on the ground. I'll talk about that in a second. There it is. I don't know about you, but I find that totally terrifying. Because that's It looks like a little Baptistina, right? Tiny little asteroid. Except now imagine trillions of these things in a cloud of shrapnel going out, away from the Earth. And what's going to happen next is that it's going to start to lose momentum, that cloud. And when it does, the Earth's gravity is going to grab back hold of it and say, come on back.
And 90% of them come back to the Earth.
Will this falling glass do harm?
Yes.
Because what happens is that the glass out in space starts to spread out like north and south and east and west, and eventually it will appear in the sky over New Zealand.
It's now a global phenomenon. And it's really hard to imagine what the hadrosaur would have seen. But the thing to keep in mind is that these things, as they're coming in, these bits of glass, 90-some-odd% are burning up in the atmosphere. So very few of them are hitting the ground. So from her point of view, probably would have looked like the greatest meteor shower anyone has ever seen. With one significant bummer, which is this. When these little bits of glass come in, each one that burns up is depositing a little bit of heat into the sky. And collectively, there's such a massive rain of these things coming in.
Well, the heat would build up. The sky would turn red. It would be getting hotter and hotter.
And at a certain point, Jay wondered, well, how hot exactly would it have gotten? Like, how much heat exactly would have built up there in the sky and then started to radiate down?
We calculated the amount of heat that would come down. A number, 10 kilowatts per square meter. And yeah, okay, well, we get this number. Well, what does that mean? Well, I went home and I hooked up a current meter and tried to measure the amount of heat produced in my oven for different amounts of power. And I could get about 7 kilowatts per square meter in my oven on broil. And
Like 500 degrees broil, you mean?
but that wasn't quite enough.
Not nearly. So Jay started measuring other kinds of ovens.
And I finally found out that the heat would be, in fact, like being in a pizza oven. A pizza oven is about right.
Which means that if you were a terrestrial dinosaur anywhere above the ground on the Earth on that day, you would have experienced some heat that is almost unimaginable. Maybe it started at 100 degrees because it was June, it was summer, but within minutes it would have been 300 degrees, 500 degrees, 700 degrees, 900 degrees. Estimates are on that day temperatures topped out at something like 1,200 degrees. At that temperature, nothing can protect you. Your scales, your fur, whatever you got, it's not going to do any good. Your blood will literally start to boil inside your body, and you will die. So essentially, according to this theory, the dinosaurs and everything else on Earth that day would have been incinerated. Doug thinks that's what did them in, not so much the impact, but all that ejecta that went up into the sky, came down as glass rain, and created that heat. That's what did them in. And he would argue it didn't just do some of them in, or even many of them in. He would say it did all of them in, all at once.
There is zero evidence that any dinosaur made it through.
And the crazy part of this theory is that Jay and Doug think that the whole process, from the impact of the glass rain to the incineration of all of these species on the planet,
It would have taken a few hours.
His best guess, he thinks maybe 2 hours.
I mean, that's less time than a business lunch.
You try getting east, north, west, anywhere on Mercer Street at rush hour in 2 hours? You can't do that.
I mean, if you think about it, that is less time than you will spend in this theater tonight.
That means that you're saying that an animal that had been supreme on the planet for 200 million years disappears in a few hours completely?
Yes. Yep. That's what the evidence suggests. That's right.
Well, you can consider the evidence, but also you could consider common sense. I mean, we've got a world filled with terrestrial dinosaurs. They were on every continent. They were even in Antarctica. And to say that they all disappeared in 2 hours, I mean, that suggests that there's none of them out of harm's way, none of them in a cave somewhere, none of them in a grotto, none of them in a protected forest of any kind. I mean, the word "all" in that connection is just too much. I just don't buy it.
But yeah, I mean, the truth is that the science is never going to be so exact as to say, yeah, all of them disappeared, or it happened on a single day, or on an afternoon. I mean, no tool that we have is that precise. But what Jay is saying is that it happened fast, very fast, nothing made it through. What I find interesting is that ultimately, you don't need the ballistics or anything we've shown you so far to know that something major and sudden happened, because you can see evidence of it literally etched into the earth.
So, here's the spot where we first found the boundary.
You can see it really well out in Colorado, actually. We sent one of our producers, Molly Webster, out there to meet a paleontologist named Kirk Johnson. They hiked over a couple of hills. They found this one specific spot.
I'm like ready for a dinosaur to come around the corner.
And
In a minute.
they started to dig.
Down like a foot at this point from where we were.
Turns out, for every 3 feet, you go down 10,000 years in time.
See, the earth has layers, kind of like a tree has rings. And every 3 feet down you go, you're going back in time about 10,000 years. And when you go all the way down, all the way back to 66.09 million years, you will find this one little skinny strip of rock.
That's the kitty band.
Dad.
This one skinny gray line.
This gray, crappy,
Oh, Dad.
this.
Now, in a very real way, that line that you're seeing, that represents the day the asteroid hit. The day. And just above that line,
That's a little bit after the day,
just below that
is
line,
a little bit before the day.
the line is called the KT boundary. And what's cool is you can actually touch it. You can touch evidence of that moment. And in fact, Kirk, what he did that day was he took his finger and he dug a piece out and he handed it to Molly.
This, I'm holding
You're
the
holding.
KT.
You're holding the KT boundary.
It's like, it's almost like chunks of coal.
Yeah, but it's not. What you're holding is a dark gray mudstone. It's a carbon-rich mudstone.
And in that mudstone, you'll find all kinds of things. I mean, you'll find very rare minerals like iridium that probably came in on the asteroid and got smushed into that line. Those little glass balls I was talking about, those little hell balls, well, if you get out a microscope and you look at that rock, you will see them in there. We put up a funny cartoon of the little hell balls. They're all in that line.
How thick do you think that line is?
It's about an inch.
Is like hidden in there is sort of the story of that day.
Absolutely.
And here's the crazy thing. If this is the line right here, this little strip here,
Robert traces a picture of the KT boundary with his finger.
and then you dig just below the line, you are going to find over and over again dinosaurs everywhere. I mean, they're not going to be alive, of course.
He starts putting some toy dinosaurs onto the line and making them move.
I'm giving them a certain amount of energy, which I shouldn't. But they're fossils. And you will find dinosaur fossils from Europe and Idaho and Montana. This one says it was made in China. But If you just go above the line, you don't find any dinosaurs. So below the line, scientists have looked everywhere above the line. And they haven't, well, everywhere they have looked anyway, they found nothing.
It's a different world. That's the amazing thing. It's a different world. And it's pretty rare you can go, this is one world, and that's another world.
You're literally just pointing pinky to pointer finger spread.
Yeah.
This is another moment where I would urge you at some point, not now, keep listening, but at some point, watch the video of this performance, because what Sarah, Darren, Glenn, and Keith do in this moment, visually, is pretty amazing.
Okay, so that was the story we told about the end of the dinosaurs, live at the Paramount Theater in Seattle, Washington. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, our reporter Molly Webster and I will dish about what we have just learned about that day, those hours, so long ago. We have a whole... I'm not going to tell you this.
Yeah, don't tell
You just have to stay around. It's coming up in just a minute.
This is Mike Bell from Newton, North Carolina. Radiolab is supported in part by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, enhancing public understanding of science and technology in the modern world. More information about Sloan at www.sloan.org.
Hi, I'm Robert Krulwich. Radiolab is supported by ZipRecruiter. I don't know if you know anything about ZipRecruiter. Let's suppose you need to recruit somebody for your business, for your office. You could, I guess, ask friends. You could put an ad out for everybody in the world to read. ZipRecruiter's idea is they have what they call a matching technology that presumably finds the right people for you and then goes and gets them to apply. Right now, Radiolab listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/Radiolab. Once again, that's ziprecruiter.com/RADIOLAB.
This is Dana Thompson from Muncie, Indiana. Radiolab is supported by Luminary, the only place where you can listen to Bill Simmons' new podcast, The Rewatchables 1999. A spin-off of The Rewatchables. The Rewatchables 1999 dissects the most iconic movies from 1999, an all-time great year in film. Listen to The Rewatchables 1999 along with other original shows only on Luminary. Visit luminary.link/RL for your first 2 months of Luminary's premium content for free. After that, it's $7.99 per month. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
This is Radiolab. I'm Jad.
I'm Robert. We are back. Now, you just heard our drastic, in-the-moment version of the day the dinosaurs all died. And now...
Do you think you're thinking of something different?
No. It was some guy who's sort of an amateur, and he was lit, and he went to South Dakota. We have an update.
Maybe you should brain dump to me.
From our reporter Molly Webster, who reported that story for us way back when, and now she is here again with news.
Very interesting news.
Well, so we're updating the apocalyptical episode,
Right.
which was probably the last time I saw you, like 6 years ago. I don't know. And the reason we're updating it is because this science article came out that basically, if it proves to be true, it could be one of the largest paleontological discoveries of the day the dinosaurs died.
Day.
It claims to tell the story of the first 15 minutes to 3 hours after the asteroid hit down in Mexico.
Wow.
And basically what it is geologic formation that is kind of like that line that we saw in Colorado, but like that line on steroids. And it's in the southwest corner of North Dakota.
Which is not close to Central
It's
America.
not close to the Gulf of Mexico at all. It's like 3,000 kilometers away. And this particular site used to be, I guess, the assumption is 66 million years ago that it was kind of like a river valley that was muddy and warm, and it was near something called the Western Interior Seaway.
So then, what did they find there?
So one of the authors on this paper is this super famous paleontologist Jan Smit. He said when he went to the site and he stood there, he's like, what I see in this place is a 3-hour story of that day with all the victims, and it feels like a movie is playing out before me.
So he can sort of turn it into a scene by scene by scene adventure in time?
Yeah, so the story that they lay out in the paper is that this area, within like 15 minutes after the asteroid, it was hit by waves from the Western Interior Sea, and they brought with them saltwater fish and like seashells and things like into this freshwater area. And then at the same time, remember like we talked about those glass balls that fell from the sky?
Yeah.
So the story that this area tells is that there are actually kind of like 3 phases of those glass balls of various like size and proportions, and some that went really, really far into like space and came back. And so they came back later than all the other ones and are more, you know, it's funny, it's like all glass balls in the end, really. but like if you're a paleontologist, you're really geeking out right now over like the different types of glass balls that this site holds.
These glass balls are basically the spill of the giant crash.
Yeah, and some of them are actually made of particles from the actual impact site.
Oh, wow.
Like in all of the previous sites they had found in the United States, none of those glass balls were actually still glass. They had decomposed into clay. Apparently glass will change into clay over time. I did not know this. But in this location they actually have glass, unaltered by the passage of time, so it holds within it like the air and geochemistry of that day and that place. And they found some that were actually, I feel like this is such a Jurassic Park moment, they found some that were trapped in amber that are totally unaltered. And I was just like, I really don't know anything except for that, like, Jurassic Park made me think that anything in amber is really important.
And very old.
Very old.
Yeah.
And like,
and frozen in time.
Holds all of the memories of Mother Earth. And
just to back up for a second, the
yeah.
site itself on the day that this asteroid hit the Earth, that was a tropical, well-populated place.
Yeah, so subtropical, well-populated.
So it would have dinosaurs, and it would have...
Yeah, so it would have dinosaurs, it would have fish, it seemed to be covered in trees, insects, lots of insects, mammals.
Little
it looks like
mammals, right?
Yeah,
like
whatever
little,
our oldest mammal was. Yeah, so it was a really like lush happening area. And what they see in this site that they've uncovered today is what appears to be instantaneous death. They've described fish that are stacked, dead fish, fossilized fish, that are stacked like logs, and it's freshwater fish and marine fish. And they do describe it as like a mass grave. There are fish fossils like wrapped around tree bases.
Like creatures and plants and stones and pebbles and shellfish and everything, saltwater, freshwater, everything all smooshed together.
It feels like a tumble of life that was like thrown, like almost like thrown together in a wash and like mixed up. You know, if you're an animal in that moment, you're there, and something happens in Mexico and you have no idea. But maybe about 15 minutes after that thing happens in Mexico that you have no idea about, you might feel the earth rumble. There's some shaking, and then that rumbling, that shaking, comes with it a big wave from the sea. And so you get this big whoosh that comes in, and then what happens is that whoosh comes in is you're already starting to get the glass balls from the heavens. And so and what they see is you get this like wave of kind of what seems to be almost like raining glass balls, and then that's like mixed in with the mud from like the tidal surge and the layers of things that are dying. And the fish, like some of the details that stand out to me the most are the fish are all generally pointed in the same direction, and they're like stacked pretty tightly, mouths open, and their fins splayed. But one of the things I think is super cool is that all that different stuff we talked about happening across the globe in our original show, like it probably got really hot. like, you know, that was Jay Maloche, who was like, it's really hot. Doug Robertson was talking about like the boiler effect, and then we talked about a flash of blue light, and we talked about things raining from the sky, and we talked about June or July, all that stuff. A lot of that stuff was based on really smart models. This seems to be a place that actually will provide evidence either for or against those models. Like charred tree trunks, which I think made like Jay Maloche really happy, because he was like, I did get really hot, you know. And then there were like the fish wrapped around trees, and then there appears to be a dinosaur bone, and possibly a dinosaur bone with skin still attached. And Kirk Johnson said if it really is a dinosaur bone and that site is connected to the asteroid impact like they think it is, it would be the youngest dinosaur ever.
My last question is there something we need to know about the man whose dig this is that would color our feelings about it?
The study's author, the main author, is this guy Robert De Palma. He's in his late 30s. He does not have a PhD. He works a lot outside of normal academia, but Jay Maloche, who was in our first thing, he is the editor on the article, and then Walter Alvarez and Jan Smith are in the article, are co-authors, and then this other guy like Mark Richards, who's like a really famous tsunami earthquake guy. So he's got a collection of people around him, and I think everyone else says, like, if the stuff that they say that they have is there, it's amazing. I do think one of the things in the paper, like, is like, people are like, you are claiming to know a 3-hour window 66 million years ago. That is a very big claim, right? You're really going to have to produce a lot of evidence, and I think that people think it could be there.
Boy, you convinced me.
Yeah.
If you got
It looks
bunches
good.
of animal all squished up together all at once, and you got rain that you can account for in different stages, and that looks like you're right there at the splat moment plus 3 hours.
I know.
And everything's dead, and the forest is burned. It's like it's almost like it's exactly what we said.
I know. I was like, well, I'm hooked.
It's just it does leave you at the end of the day feeling a little bit nervous to be on this big, safe blue dot, recognizing that we're so vulnerable, that life is really fragile when a pebble can murder.
You know what
at
I
that
think
scale.
is the crazy part is, if you were an animal standing in North Dakota, you would have no idea what was happening. There's like, I like logic. I like to be able to say, oh, there's a source, and then a thing happened. And to just be there, and all of a sudden the earth starts rattling like a bell around you, and then a tidal wave comes in, and then I'm dead.
The tidal wave comes in when you're not even near the sea.
No. Like, that to me is the most stunning part.
The
is
taste
just,
of salt on your mouth as you die, thinking, where did that is what?
yeah, it's just like to just be standing there unawares, and then a thing happens that really has nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
That's the weird part to me.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Brought to you by Sarah Lipstick, Glenn Coaching, Darren Gray! I just want to give a very special thanks to the people who shared the stage with us. Sarah Lipstate from Noveller, Darren Gray on the bass, and Glenn Coachy on the drums. They're both from the band On Fillmore. We were so lucky to share the stage with those guys, along with video maestro Keith Scratch, who was doing the live video.
Brilliant puppeteer Myron Brousseau.
Oh my god, that guy. So good. Check out all of them at radiolab.org/live. You can see them doing what they do visually. It's pretty worth watching. I'm Chad Abumrad.
I'm Robert Krulwich. Thanks for listening.
In Seattle, Washington. Radiolab was created by Chad Abumrad and is produced by Soren Wheeler. Dylan Keefe is our director of sound design. Susie Lechtenberg is our executive producer. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Becca Bresler, Rachel Cusick, David Gebel, Bethel Hopte, Tracy Hunt, Nora Keller, Matt Keelty, Robert Krolwich, Annie McEwen, Latif Nasser, Melissa O'Donnell, Sarah Kari, Ariane Lack, Pat Walters, and Molly Webster, with help from Shima Oliai, Audrey Quinn, and Neil Dinesha, and our fact checker is Michelle Harris.
Hi, I'm Robert Krulwich. Radiolab is supported by Capital One. Capital One is reimagining banking by offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened from anywhere in 5 minutes. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A.
Wait, you're listening?
You're listening to Radiolab.
Radiolab.
From
WNYC.
Hello. Today we wanted to bring back a story that's one of my personal favorite stories that we've done. This